Shalom everyone, and this week we're studying Parashat Ki-Tetse. Parashat Ki-Tetse is in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21, verse 10. Okay, we have to understand that the context of this parasha is the sign of Virgo, the month of Elul in the Hebrew calendar. And this is very important to know that we're already within the month before the starting of the Hebrew New Year. The Hebrew New Year is an institution, concept of its own, because we have to understand that concept of the New Year, that the New Year is the moment that all human souls have the opportunity to rejuvenate themselves, reconnect to their creator. And why is it important? Because we all need that rejuvenation, because we all know that there is in nature, in our nature, everywhere, we have that concept of systems getting clogged, system getting tired. That's why once in a while we have to restart our computers or our phones. That's why we need sometimes to leave work and study, go to sleep, and start all over in the morning. And everything looks so different in the morning. And that's why also nature needs rejuvenation. And that's why when we have this kind of a winter that stops everything because it's too cold, and nature can rejuvenate later on in the spring. And the word spring is all of those life forces spring out again after the dormance of the winter. So we see that concept repeating itself many times. Or a person goes for a vacation in order just to leave everything behind. So when you come back, everything looks differently. Now, here the concept is much higher, because the Hebrew New Year, this is basically the celebration of the creation of humanity, the creation of the field that is called planet Earth, that field that the human souls came into in order to do their own journey of finding that truth, light, whatever that is good. And basically that's the meaning of our existence. So the beginning of the Hebrew New Year, it's not celebrating a calendar event. It's celebrating life, celebrating the concept of meaning of life. So therefore, the month before, the month of Elul, the month of Virgo, this is the time that we prepare ourselves for that rejuvenation, because we want to gain as much as possible when that gift of rejuvenation appears to all human soul. Doesn't matter what's their cultural, religious, whatever affiliation they have, it's all human souls that are reconnecting to the birth of humanity. So with that background, we can understand this parasha much better. And again, the parasha, the name of parasha is Ki-Tetse, which means as it's Ki-Tetse la milchama al oivecha, as you wage war against your enemies. And then the Lord your God is going to give him in your hand. And then you will take his spoils. That's the first verse. Verse 10, chapter 21. There's a problem that many of the commentators realize, because grammatically, the Torah is very precise. The Torah has no grammatic mistakes. And here, grammatically, it's not correct, because it says, if you notice what I said, it's not my grammatical mistake, it's the Torah kind of look-alike mistake. Ki-Tetse למלחמה לאויביך, you wage war against your enemies in plural, ונתנו, and Hashem Elokecha בידיך, and the Lord God is going to give him, single, in your hand, single, and you will take his spoils, single. Okay? And it's spoil, not spoils, but in Hebrew it makes sense. Okay, so we have a problem, grammatical problem. Why you wage war against your enemies, but, and by the way, when you wage war against your enemies, you have to fight. You have to fight them. And only after you fight them, it should be that God will help you achieve victory. But that's not the way it says over here. And here comes the most important concept of this time of the year, and basically understanding the concept of life. Because let's see, if we read, there are many, many commentaries about it, because it says the next verse is verse 11, V'ra'ita b'shivya, and you will see in the captivity, the war is over, and you take the spoils from your enemy, that you won the war, and you see in the captivity a beautiful woman, and you desire her, and you can take her as a wife. There are limits over here, which means you cannot just do whatever you want. The Torah is giving here some rules. You bring her to your house, and then she has to shave her head, and then she has to cut her nails, and she should sit in your home and cry, mourn, lament her father, her mother for 1 month. And after that, if you still want her, you can take her as a wife. But if you don't want her after a month, you should let her go free. You cannot sell her as a slave. You cannot abuse her, okay? Because you already got her a lot of trouble anyway, okay? Which is, it looks like the rules of combat, of wars. And we know that the ancient world, part of the war, and unfortunately, in many places on this planet, still raping the enemy's wife or women is part of the tools of war, terrorizing the population that you conquer. And the Torah is totally against that. You cannot abuse somebody, your enemy's women. But still, the commentators are really still upset. With all of those restrictions, the commentators are questioning, like, how could that happen? Because we read in the previous parasha, Parashat Shoftim, that when you are going to go into a war, and the high priest should announce, whoever just got married and didn't spend 1 year with his wife, go home. Whoever just planted a vineyard and is afraid that somebody else is going to enjoy the fruit of the vineyard, go home. And in the end, there are many, many conditions like this. If you cannot really focus on fighting for your nation, go home. What are you doing over here? We need people really dedicated. And at the end, if you didn't get it, the Kohen, the high priest, is saying, whoever is afraid and feels that that's not for him, the war, go home. So the sages are asking, so who went to war? Only people really were not just mighty and strong in their physical built up and physical condition of fitness, they were also very fit mentally. And that means it's quite like how someone like this goes to war just to protect his family and his nation, how he would be able to see women and to, set his mind away from his job, which is to win the war and go home to your family. Now, how could that happen that you'll be busy with beautiful women? Okay, so we have a very strong question because the sages that are making this commentary, they have an issue with that because it's weird. Why would the Torah give you a permission to do something that is so against the Torah spirit? So in order to understand that, so of course we have here some sages who are saying that if you are so pure and you're so fit spiritually, and you see a woman in captivity and you have a liking to her, that's not just simple, could be that she has a pure soul that needs to be lifted up. Because remember, in the ancient times, the nations around were terribly into idol worshiping and horrible stuff, which means human sacrifice among the nations around. We're talking about the Canaanites, the Phoenicians. It was very deep. The worship of the Baal, very horrible. So you were not supposed even to have any connection to something, to a society that is so off spiritually. And if you did feel something, could be there's a holy soul in that woman, and therefore take her home if you feel like liking to her, and check it out. Maybe she really has a high spiritual soul, and you are taking her from that horrible society of idol worshiping, and you give an opportunity to really connect to holiness. So that's the simplistic explanation. But there's a deeper explanation. And we started because the word Ki-Tetse milchama, that as you wage war, we already had it in Parashat Shoftim, which is the previous parasha. And that basically starts the story. If you go to chapter 20 in Deuteronomy, verse 1, the same language is being used like this one that we just read. Ki-Tetse milchama l'oivecha, as you wage war against your enemy. And here, by the way, it's against your enemy single. Okay, and we'll see what's the difference of why is it like this. Why do you start with plural and then you go into single, while in chapter 20, verse 1, it is single? Okay, so when we go to Or HaChaim HaKadosh, we're talking about Rabbi Chaim ben Attar. He was a great Kabbalist from Morocco, 17th century. He finally reached Jerusalem. He's buried right here in Jerusalem, in front of the Temple Mount, or Mount Olives. And he wrote one of the most amazing commentaries to the Torah. It is called Or HaChaim, the light of life. And that's why everybody calls him the holy light of life, because many sages, you don't call them by your name, you call them by the name of their work, the book, the commentary they wrote. So what does he say? Rabbi Chaim ben Attar. As you wage war, ulai sheramaz katuv, it is a hint, which means we understand that every verse in the Torah has 4 layers of explanation. The first is the pshat, the simple, that we just spoke about it earlier. You know, you go to war, and the people who went to war had to be really pure mentally. It was not people that were going to war because they wanted the spoils. They were not allowed. They wanted to kill. That's not the kind of people that the Torah allows to go into war. And therefore, like, that's why it's very surprising if someone like this wants to take a woman, because you know, that's not you. You know, you're not this kind of a person that goes to war in order to rape women. It shouldn't be like this. And even today, it sounds like a joke, but somebody did a PhD doctorate. Why is it that Israeli soldiers don't rape Arab women in the wars, although the Israeli wars, there's so many wars, so painful and so on, and you don't have cases that Israeli soldiers are raping Arab women during the war. And somebody tried to explain it as racism. It's because the Jewish soldiers are racist, and that's why they don't want to engage with Arab women. You think about it whatever you want. But still, we can see it in modern Israel, this phenomenon, and that not most of the soldiers are not really righteous people, and you can see it happening. So that's, again, it raises the question about the Torah thing, about why you even have to go into something of that. So the first explanation, the first layer of every verse in the Torah is called the pshat, the simple. The second layer, there are four of them. The second layer is remez. And here, Orach Chaim, Rabbi Chaim Benatar is teaching us as follows. What we see over here is that the remez is that what we are talking about is the real war. What's the real war? Milchemet ha'adam im yitzro. The only real war happening is the war that the human being has with his evil inclination. ובא להסיר מלבבו מורך, ואמר כי תצא למלחמה ידועה. And that came, and this is like taking away the fear out of the person's heart, because the war, the real war, the only real war is the war that a person has to wage against his evil inclination. Okay? And because she'en gdola mimena, because there's no bigger war than that. Because when you win the war within yourself, then you are capable of achieving anything in an outside physical dimension. And he's quoting that is even like he lived in the 16th century. He's quoting a book, Chovat Alvavot, which is like so many centuries even earlier than that. We're talking about this 12th century, and that's based even before. In this war, that is the biggest war, the most important war, the war that we have to wage against the dark aspect of our own nature. The two things that are the hardest in that war, that makes us really, that basically weaken us the most. One, if you're not really trained in that war, like the same thing in the physical war, if you're not training, how can you win? And that's why in the Israeli army, they teach you that if it's hard in the exercises, then it will be easy in the real battlefield. But it means if you don't exercise before, you don't keep your fitness, you're not really trained properly, like monthly, yearly, and so on, that you cannot be a soldier. Then you come to a real war, and the same thing that it is in the physical war, it's the same in the spiritual war. If you're not trained, if you're not training yourself daily, weekly, yearly, then how are you going to win in the biggest, most powerful, and most important war in your life? Because between us, there's no other war. It's the only war. We human beings, we were created in a perfect state of a perfect soul. Every human being has inside a complete, perfect soul. Why? Because we were created by the Creator himself. And since the Creator is endless and complete, his creation is endless and complete. However, since we were created in his image, because he could not create something less than that kind of equality, we also have the need to perform being creators. And I already explained many times that we can explain the three aspects of what does it mean being a creator for a human being. And the three easiest aspects to explain is that A, it's being independent because nobody tells the creator what to do. And therefore, we don't like to be told what to do. But that's a little bit more sophisticated. We can't stand situations in which our happiness is dependent on something external to us, which means the moment, let's say in our materialistic society, civilization, and we are being trained since we are babies, that if you want to be happy, you need to acquire things. Could be sweets, food, toys, recognition, which means you're always on the run to achieve all kinds of things, because these things, they determine your happiness. That's the brainwashing we go through since we're kids. Okay? Why that leads only into misery? Because that basically negates the principle of independence, which means if my happiness is dependent on stuff that I have to shop, buy, or acquire in a certain way, that means that I am creating dependency. This is not who I am, and therefore this is a journey, or this is a war that you can never win in that war, because things external to you can never really make you happy. Okay, so remember that. Okay, the second aspect of being a creator means creativity. And that means that you need to create your own happiness out of your own lifestyle, your own behavior. And that's why it's very hard to find happy, lazy people, because the most happiest people we know, I know, from my experience and other people's experience, are the people who are very creative. And they do not wait for others for their creativity. And the third aspect is giving. The creator is the biggest giver, and we need to give in order to feel like creators. And that's why you can't find happy, selfish people, because the happiest people on earth are the people who are really into unconditional giving. So, since that's our nature, that's our image, how can we connect to the creator? The creator created for us this physical, limited universe, which we are created far away from him, and we are being born into a physical body, and that physical body is there to disturb. That's where the word Satan came from. Satan, shaitan, whatever you want to call it. The word Satan from Hebrew means simply to disturb, the one who disturbs. Who disturbs our connection to the Creator and his endless bliss? That is our Satan. Who is our Satan? That is our dark side. Why do we have a dark side? So when we achieve our independence, when we create our creativity on our own, and when we create with our force of independence and creativity, we create life full of happy, unconditional sharing, giving, loving, and sensitivity to others. That is when we reconnect to the Creator, and now our fulfillment is ours. It's ours, it's acquired. It's not given, it is ours, which means when our drive is to be independent, we cannot stand even God's love and sharing and bliss. We cannot stand receiving it for nothing. We need to have ownership for our happiness. And therefore, only in this perplexing, confusing, dark reality with so many problems and paradoxes, although this universe is so beautiful, still it's full of so much injustice and so much Satan, which means Satan is not a freelance. Remember that. Satan is not an authority of its own. Satan is a force that serves the purpose of the creation. The Satan job is to push us as much as possible away from the light of the Creator. So when we overcome our own Satan, our own disturber, our own darkness, our own dark side, we get divinity, spirituality, fulfillment, true and lasting happiness out of our own creativity. Then that's the happiness and the fulfillment that no one can take away from us. And the ones who are sitting and waiting for that to happen, they keep on waiting. And that's why Or HaChaim is teaching us, this is the only and the most important war in your life. Of course, a lot of people, they're just giving up. How could I overcome my limitations? You know, because I'm not trained in that war. The second thing is, so one thing, why is it so hard for us to make the war? A, we are not being trained, which means we need to train ourselves daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, all the time to understand that's the name of the game. The name of the game is we need to be enlightened. We need to achieve true and lasting success. And that has to be always within the story of the fight against our own dark side. And if you don't train, if you neglect that aspect of your life, don't be surprised that you're not arriving to real, true, lasting fulfillment. Happiness will be so far away from you because that's a definition of our human existence on this physical earth. So that's one condition, one thing that is very tough for us to understand, to apply, to train ourselves, to be ready for the real war. The second thing is, שהרכבת האדם חובקת דברי היצר בכל אשר יאמר אליו. בענייני האיסור. Okay, the composition of a person is composed of what? A soul within a body. The body has a lot of drives that are very, very disturbing. I spoke a lot about the Professor Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize for Economy, proving that people make decisions, the most important decisions in their lives, which means buying a house, investing in a company, all those great, most important decisions. You would think that people make a rational, they create a rational process of till they come to a rational answer to what should I do? Should I buy? Should I sell? Should I stay out of it? Should I choose another direction? And he proved that the process of the decision-making for most people is not rational. And lately, he published this book that is called Noise, and he goes deeper how the noise, which is unhappiness, animosity, anger, jealousy, all of these emotions, they are really built as noise that distract us from making the right decisions. It doesn't matter if you are a judge or a policeman, if you are your job is to make appraisals, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's every human has his own calling, his own profession, his own basically destination in life, how to reveal light. Therefore, we are born with certain great traits. Some people are amazing in design, and some people are terrible in design, so they have to hire the designers. But they are very good in something else, and some are great in cooking, and some are great in building. You know, every person comes to this world with certain traits that makes him very, makes him very needed for other people. And as long as Kahneman is proving through research of decades, as long as we let the noise, all of these, what Orach Chaim is teaching us, basically that's called the evil inclination. When we do not really understand that this noise, we're not here to be right, to be annoyed, to be upset, to criticize, to be busy with letting the trauma running our lives. That's not our goal. Our goal is exactly the opposite. Our goal is to find our true calling and overcome that noise, which is basically the evil inclination. So what are you saying? So what is that kind of a noise? Either it's the need to steal, which means taking what is not yours. And, stealing is not just going into a store and lifting up, shoplifting. That's for small stealing. There's big stealing that big companies and big governments, they do steal. What does it mean to steal? To take what doesn't really legally and honestly belongs to you. Okay? So stealing, robbing, pride, ego, gluttony. There's so many of them. And what he's saying, basically, if we go, let's skip a little bit forward. When we spoke about the beginning of Parashat Ki-Tetse, what do we say? You wage war against your enemies. Remember, it started with plural. And you think that your enemy is lack of honesty, that you want the money more than you trust that honesty can finally lead you to profit. Okay? Other people think my enemy is gluttony. I can't stop eating sugar, white flour, meat, oil, fat, all of that stuff. Okay, that's my enemy. Okay, so other people, it's because I don't trust people. So you think, most people think, these are my enemies. And so I need to go on workshops and stuff like this. So in order to basically go through a rehab, getting out of my addiction to these kinds of needs that really destroy my life. And again, we are here into, I have so many enemies. These are the real enemies that rob my happiness away from me. Because if I could be skinny, if I could be more relaxed, less stressful, if I could be more loving and positive, less reactive, I could really be more successful in making relationships with other people. Okay, we all have a whole list of stuff that really annoy us. And that's what Kahneman is calling the noise. And you think that that is your enemy. But where we see, when you're really exercising the word and you really realize that that's the main profession that you have to be an expert in, which is, this is the seed of your true happiness, being able to fight that noise. And then you realize that our enemy is not gluttony or dishonesty, fear of loss, and fear of rejection, all of that stuff. No, we have one enemy, and that enemy is our dark side. And we learn how to fight him. We realize that all of these army of forces that we feel that they are our enemy because they don't allow us to become the people we dream to become, that we have vision to become. Then we realize we don't have a whole army of enemies, we have one. And we can see it here also. You wage war against your enemy. Again, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verse 1. You wage war against your enemy, the real enemy. There's only one. It's your own dark side. V'ra'ita sus v'rechev, and you will see a horse and a chariot. You go to war, one horse, one chariot. No, you look when you finally admit, I have one enemy. That is my dark side. And then you realize, as the Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar is saying, he is great, huge as a horse. He's big and strong. You know, human for power and horsepower, he can't even compare. Okay? And he has a chariot. Not just he's so strong, he is put together. In chariot is coming from French charrette, and that's Hebrew rechev, which means to compose a body and a soul. Here it is, a evil inclination with a physical body, both together. This is a composition. This is a real kind of a a tank for combat. The power, the strength, the firepower. This is so strong. How can I fight something that is so much bigger than I am? What's the next words? What the next words are about? Lo tira mehem, do not fear them. Ki Adonai Elohecha imach, because the Lord your God is with you. Something I spoke about in the previous parasha, Parashat Shoftim. You want to have an honest government. You want to have a just system of government, police, legal system, clerks. You know, when you want to do some stuff, and a lot of times you need cooperation with the government because there's legislation, there's also regulation, there are laws, and you have to go by, and you need to get permits and permissions and stuff like this, and you need to face people who are there to help you, to support you, because you, with your taxes, you pay their salaries. And sometimes you meet them and you feel that these people are addicted to the power you entrusted in their hands, because we, the people, gave the government the power to rule, so they help maintain some order. Okay? So you would think that you're going to for the government to help you because that's their job, and you realize, no, there's noise over here. The noise is called ego. The noise is called corruption. It's called corruption. Even the simple, they don't want, they don't want bribery. You don't have to give them money on the side. But they have that feeling of exercising power upon you of no need. You realize that they don't have to do it. That's not according to the law, okay? But they exercise that power because it feels so powerful to tell someone, no, you can't. This is illegal. No, I'm not giving you the permit. Okay? I'm not saying everybody's like this, but it's too much, and people feel that. And what's the point is, when humanism came into power in Europe and then America, and then it gave birth to the modern democracies, and people thought we can create an honest and just society just with pure human rationale. And the result is, as it says over here, the only way you can win against your own inner demons, your own inner Satan, your own dark side, that basically robs you from your calling. Because if you are put in certain position, government, any kind of occupation, like, you could be a carpenter, you could be a high-tech person, whatever. The Creator gave you some qualities. So with these qualities, you can learn how to be independent, which means you really create your own calling, and you give value to humanity based on what? Using the tools the Creator gave you. So when you overcome the dark side, and you really can be focused on true creativity and giving, sharing that value with the rest of humanity, just the people around you, you basically manifest the calling of your birth on earth, your existence. And by this, you recreate your connection to the Creator. This expression of recreate your connection to the Creator, that now is your own creation. You created that reconnection to the endless light of bliss of the Creator. The Creator created you to receive His light. You can't receive it if you don't create that connection by yourself. And this is why the word teshuvah, that there's a poor translation which means repentance. In Hebrew, the word is not repentance. Teshuvah means return the connection. The connection, we were created connected to the Creator. We couldn't stand that because we wanted to create that connection on our own. So the month of Elul is the month that we have huge help. And the help is, go back to our topic. You cannot, as a human being, win the war against your big enemy, your own biggest enemy. And that biggest enemy is your own dark side. You cannot win the war without the light of the Creator, without reconnecting to the Creator. The moment you think you can do it on your own, look, humanism was amazing. You know, the French Revolution was amazing. Equality, brotherhood, everything, all this amazing slogan. Just read about the history of the French Revolution. The bloodshed that was spilled, killing people just because they didn't think like me. Where is this coming from? Where is unity? Where is equality? Where's happiness? Okay, it's gone. Why? The moment you get God out of the picture, who becomes your God? Your dark side. And you can't even separate. So then who controls you? Ego, anger, fear, hatred. You cannot tolerate other opinions. You cannot discuss logically, discuss logically problems, what is called brainstorming. Brainstorming can happen only among people who have enough self-confidence in order to be able to listen to others and to say, you know what? You're not totally right, but you know, that helps me to achieve a better understanding of what's the story is about. I listen, I take in, and you know what? After I listen to you, I'm smarter, I'm wiser, okay? And finally, when we all listen to each other, because we all different, we can create a better understanding of the situation. We can have better solutions. But that cannot happen. I think we all experience that when a person is so obsessed with his fears, with his ego, with his selfishness, with his blame and anger and trauma. You can't do that. So you cannot create a just society when you don't have that issue of people really fighting the real war. The real war is the war we fight within. And the real war cannot be waged without the most powerful thing, which is the light. So when you're trying to win the war just with honesty, it's going to be okay. We don't need religion anymore. We can see the results all over the planet right now. We as humans, we have to reinvent our connection to the Creator, independently from politicians or religious people who basically, they're basically politicians hidden under religion. And we have to find our own connection. That's called Teshuvah. And Elul, this is the month of Teshuvah, the month of finding the truth. What is the truth? To find our own real calling. Nobody really wants to hate. Human beings don't really want to be angry. Everybody really wants to be feeling love, pleasure, happiness, and light. The problem is when we are not aware there is a war, what is the chance? What are the chances we're going to win that war? No chances. So let's go back to what we were just saying. So when we're talking about going to the real war, if you really go to the war with the light of the Creator and you realize the war is not against people, the war is not against situations. The war, first of all, must be won within, to remove the noise by reconnecting ourselves to the light of God. How? Prayer, meditation, honesty. You're not honest because somebody is going to catch you. Honesty is a virtue that when you arrive to true honesty in business, in relationships, that's your own game, because honesty, true honesty and integrity is basically a result of reconnecting to the light of the Creator. Then you're not very afraid. Then you care for that honesty. You care for that integrity, because this is what we are here for. And then the bliss can flow because you're reconnected. So what does it mean that God will give him in your hands? We already understood. When you really understand what the war is, and you go to war with the light of the Creator, and you understand without him, you cannot win the war. Which you go into a dark room and you curse the darkness and you throw stones at it, it will still stay there. You only need to bring the light in, and the darkness will go. And that's what the war is about, to really trust the light and to send our mind. And that's this parasha is a lot about, and also parasha, the previous parasha, is to kill the darkness by sending our minds and focus to the light of the Creator. If we experience that and we train daily to meditate, to pray, we'll be much better in this war. And then you could take his spoils. What's his spoils? He took your soul as in captivity. He is abusing your soul by flooding your soul with noise of it's his fault, it's her fault, it's a trauma, it's that. And oh, you have so many excuses why your life is in a mess. No, don't listen to him. Finally, what does it mean that you take his spoils into captivity? You find your soul that was captive. That's a beautiful woman you find, because your soul is beautiful as the Shekhinah, as the divine presence. The divine presence is made of all those souls that are in captivity. The moment you release your soul from captivity, you strengthen the Shekhinah, the divine presence, because the light of God cannot dwell only into a vessel, a soul that is aware to these ideas and is awakened to receive the bliss, because we were created for that purpose. You can find that in the Zohar, in this parasha, Zohar, Parashat Ki-Tetse, in the Sulam commentary, verse 104. And it says that, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the main author of the Zohar, and his students, and somehow they come into a session, they have a revelation with Elijah the prophet and the great sages of the Garden of Eden. So they teach them, and they say, Shimu, listen, Kan Ramuz, Ve'eliyahu ve'Rabanan ve'umarei metivtan. All the heads of the yeshivot, of the academies in the Garden of Eden, which means all those great souls, already completed their correction. And they teach, the authors of the Zohar, and they say here, in this parasha we learn, Ein chavush matir et atzmo beit ha'asurim. The prisoner cannot release himself from jail. And what does it mean? How can we release our prisoned soul, the imprisoned light of the Creator from prison? We are the ones that can release that light and that soul from imprisonment. And how do we do it? And the answer is when all the great things that we do in life, when we perform a mitzvah, which means we keep to honesty, we respect the main rules of do not steal and do not kill and do not rob and do not covet your neighbor's wife. When we do not cheat, you see it in the parasha, we do not cheat people we deal with. And we do that not because it's nice, we do that because that's our way to reconnect ourselves to the virtues we acquire, to the network of the tree of life. When we do that, we finally can receive the connection, we can receive the grace of the creation and its abundance of light. And we do that because we realize that we really make the world properly. We basically allow finally the Creator to share with us all what He has in store for us since the creation. And that is to be chassid, that to be a person of righteousness and virtue, because when finally you wage the war, because you realize your calling, you realize that I'm here to perform a life that is full of light and bliss. And that is the goal of that war that we wage daily. Let's go a little bit back. And in the beginning of Parashat Ki-Tetse in the Zohar, we learn about this, again, another halacha, another law, and it speaks about okay. Here, that you find it in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22, verse 13. Ki yikach ish isha uva elea usnea. A man takes a woman into he weds her, and then he hates her. Verse 14, Vesam alea lilot dvarim, and then he badmouths her, and he says, I took that woman and she was not a virgin and she's not okay, and so forth and so forth. And he wants and he's upset. And that was a lie. So here the story about what will happen. It's like you have to take it to court and you have to have, do you have witnesses that she was not a virgin? Do you have, all of that stuff? It's not that easy. And the Zohar is asking what's in it for us. Like, what if I did not have it? Remember, every mitzvah in the Torah, every verse has few layers of understanding. And the Zohar says something that is really, really important, that completes what we just spoke about before. And he's saying like this, bad-mouthing a wife is the same of bad-mouthing. A wife is the female. The female is the vessel. And the vessel means reality. Human beings have a very horrible nature, which means that's a very strong power of our evil inclination, our Satan, which is to blame everything, to badmouth reality. Life is not just, life is horrible, life is tough, you can't find honor anymore, you can't trust anymore, and you don't say it because you really care about what's happening, you say it because you're really annoyed upset, and you say it because that is one of the tools of your evil inclination. By bad-mouthing your situation, saying it's hopeless, which means I have now an excuse. Why not to excel? Why not being the best carpenter in the world? Why not being the best electrician in the world? Why not being the best judge in the world? Why not being the best senator in the world? Why not fighting my evil inclination so I can really bring the value that my soul is supposed to bring to the world? And by doing that, I'm releasing the light of the Creator from its bondage. Only me, human being, in this reality, we are the only ones. We can release the light from prison. The light cannot release itself. In our reality, how do we release the light of the Creator? When we focus on the goal of enlightenment, being a creator, being independent, being creatures of sharing. When we do that, we really reach the vision that is promised to each human soul. But the most horrible, terrible tool of Satan is to convince us that everybody is terrible, reality is bad, the whole world is full of cheats and liars and stuff like this. We have to remember, Satan is not a freelance. He's a vehicle for us, because the darker he is, the more vicious he is, the more conniving he is, our victory is greater, and our reconnection to the light of the Creator is more valuable. So basically, what does it mean tikkun? What does it mean correction? What does it mean for every one of us to reach his reconnection to the light of God or to the tree of life system? And the answer is, when we take those dark aspects of our life and we transform them, that's the only way we basically to reach tikkun, which means you want to know how enlightened you're supposed to be. Look at all those dark aspects of your life and know that each one of them is your gate for enlightenment. So, and that's why one of the major points of vision of the Zohar, of the great Kabbalist sages, it's all about recycling. It's all about recycling. You can look at people pollution. Okay, people pollute. One of the most terrible pollutions is sewage. People use precious water. Okay, and we waste most of the water we use. We waste it, and then now the water that was fresh, holy water, and now it's polluted with the soaps, with all the stuff that we pollute it with our own stuff, and then it comes to the city sewage system, and now we have a problem how to remove that. So you can look at sewage as a source of, headache. While, in Israel, we look at sewage as one of the biggest national resources. Because if water is so precious, especially nowadays, especially in the Middle East, not just the Middle East, all over the world, fresh water, but one of the biggest sources for water, for agriculture in Israel, is sewage water. Don't look at it as a headache, look at it as a national resource. Because if you go right now for a system of replenishing this water, recycling the water. So Israel recycles 80% of its sewage water. Why? This is a very precious source of life. You just replenish the water, and now you can grow so much food, so many vegetables, so many fruits. You can create, it's becoming a great source of productivity. The same thing. Our dark side is not dark. It is a resource, because the dark side we have, the moment we transform it, it becomes a source of pride. Simple. We're not here to celebrate our qualities. Whatever qualities we have and we're born with, this is something that was given to us as a gift. Okay? So what is ours? Only the dark sides. Only that enemy. As I said, anger, upset, negativity, bad mouthing, always complaining and being bitter about those terrible people who robbed my life. Being a victim is such a great resource, because when you transform the victim state of mind into a winner state of mind, you created so much value. Look at all of those dark aspects of your nature, as this is what you need to recycle into a great source of virtue, value, because just think about it, the bigger the darkness, the greater the light you can reveal. The bigger the problems you have, the greater is the victory and the light you can experience and reveal. And the light you can, as I said before, from the Zohar, when we overcome the darkness, we release so much of light, of bliss, that is basically jailed. And when we simply transform those aspects of darkness, there's so much light being released. And that's the source of true, lasting happiness and a sense of success. Thank you, everybody, and wishing everybody a lot of success. Focus on that. Always remember you're not alone. The moment you go to war, as long as you remember you're not alone, more than you want to be successful in that, your coach, your master, your king, your Father in heaven is there for you, for each one of us, so we can win that war, because he's more invested in it than we are. We don't really realize what's waiting for us, but he knows what he has prepared for us. And he's just there for us to train us in a holy war against our own darkness, so we can become the magical creatures we were supposed to become. Thank you so much. Good luck in your war, especially in this month towards Rosh Hashanah.